Here we go. Today, hi tree huggers.
Morning.
Hi, Terri. This is Terri Cooper and I'm Stacy Pulley with Family Tree Therapies. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Dr. Mike Mew. He, if you haven't heard of him, I don't know how you couldn't have at this point, but if you haven't heard of him, he's a third generation orthodontist. He practices in London, and he's got some really cool things to share with us today about how he looks at growth and development through the face and facial bones, and how he has a different perspective on orthodontia. And we're really excited to hear from him today. So welcome, Dr. Mew.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yes.
Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast.
Well, we are really excited to have you because Terri and I, every day, we talk about, not only do we talk about mewing per se, but I'm also a myofunctional therapist. So we talk about the tongue and the position of the tongue and the swallowing and posture all day long. And so we reference your work. We send out short videos from your Orthotropic YouTube channel as homework for parents. So we reference you and talk about you all day. So it really is an honor for us to actually get to talk to you live and also to share. We hope to share this podcast with our families to say, here's what we talk about all day, and here's the man.
And you were one of the first people that I had found who was linking and connecting the oral postures all the way down to the toes. So I'm excited to hear some of those links.
Yeah, I don't think posture stops in the mouth.
Good. We agree.
We agree. So we look at whole body and we see everything from infants to adults. And so we get really excited when we can see the younger babies, obviously, and start them off on an earlier path. Material, of course, looking at whole body. And so for us, we've always, without having the foundation really, have been linking this the whole time together. We practiced since 2005. And so to find your work and then to find Karen O'Rourke, who lives here in Michigan as well, and to start working with Karen has been obviously life-changing for us, and we hope for a lot of our clients.
Yeah, I mean, improving people's lives has to be our objective.
Yes. So tell us a little about you and about how you came to practice like this and your perspective.
Okay, so being third generation, you've got to realize how much rarer outside of the US simply going into being your father's profession is.
Oh, okay.
So this is quite rare outside the US for a dentist to be. Oh yeah. It's the US is an interesting country in many respects, particularly in the respect how all of the medical and dental people seem to follow in their parents' footsteps.
They do.
It's very unusual outside.
Interesting.
My father really inspired me and with what he was saying. And of course, what he's saying, it is about health. It is about linking these things together, but it's also about how your face looks and is. And these are subjects that, I kind of believe that everyone who has a face agrees with.
I think so.
So, or is interested with, shall I say? I wouldn't say agree with it, that would be wrong. But I would say everyone with a face probably is interested in what I'm saying.
Yes.
And it's sometimes difficult to know where to start. But
sure.
Well, I started this quest trying to understand why teeth are crooked. And it's taken me on a very interesting pathway. And it's what you see is our ancestors just didn't have crooked teeth ever. It never existed. It doesn't exist in other, we're one of 5,400 species of mammal. None of these other mammals have crooked teeth or problems. And it's when you look back on as I said, I couldn't tell you if our ancestors had sleep apnea. I couldn't tell you if they had type 2 diabetes. We don't think they did. We think these are modern diseases.
Sure.
But I can tell you where the teeth were, or still are. Go down to the museums, have a look.
Yeah.
They're there, evident to see, plain in front of you. And they had, it was interesting that you know, evolutionarily, a blink away. You know, there's been no evolution in the last 10,000 years. There's nothing. Anyone suggests that this is caused by the genetic change, they don't know their genetics. They don't know what's happening. You know, within 10,000 years, there has been no change. You know, we've got little tiny bits like alcohol dehydrogenase or lactose tolerance. I mean, these are minor sort of bit changes. Nothing like, you know, extra fingers on my hands or down.
Right.
And what seems to have changed, it seems to have been this huge wholesale change over that period of time. I mean, you know, you've got guys, everyone 10,000 years ago had these huge, great big upper jaws, all 32 teeth, that's including the wisdom teeth.
Right.
Often a centimeter behind that.
Wow.
And that was absolutely normal.
Yeah.
But they had this interesting thing called a helicoidal wear pattern, where you wore all your teeth down, you know, because you did those days, you know, you were chewing a lot because the food required that much effort to gain. You wore your teeth down. And of course, you know, I've got good muscles.
Yes, you do.
I've got a strong jaw. I think that's related.
I think so too.
And have good jaw, have space for all your teeth.
I was just feeling with my tongue how much space I have back there.
Yeah.
Not as much as I'd like over here.
Not as much, you know. So, and of course, it's a simple use it or lose it. I mean, there's more to it. I mean, we're talking about tongue posture, we're talking some other things as well. But one of the big factors, I think the two big factors, is we're just not using this system enough.
Right.
And use it or lose it. And it's no one's really, the facts are there.
Right.
The hard scientific evidence is clearly showing malocclusion's a modern disease. It's a disease caused by how we're living.
Yes. And I'm seeing it in feeding therapy with all the pouches and all the purees and all the different sippy cups that get me started on.
How many blenders was there 10,000 years ago?
Exactly. And now there's whole blenderized diets, and we're blenderizing everything, and we're blenderizing our, you know, we make adult foods and they're blenderizing things and everything comes in a can. And I'm noticing it as well, obviously.
Yeah. And, you know, we said we all eat processed food. Either a machine processes it for you, or you use your own processing system.
There you go. I like that.
I like that one.
I like that.
That's not mine. That's from the baby-led weaning. Jill Rapley.
Okay.
And you know, she makes some very good comments, and I think that, you know, you must be aware of baby-led weaning. I'm sure you're aware of Jill Rapley. You know, she's you know, a very nice lady who I've spent much time with, who's come up with some. I think, like me, I mean, she doesn't claim to have invented baby-led weaning. She said it's not new.
Sure.
This is old stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time it's been reinvented either.
Right.
And sometimes it's just, you know, an idea has its moment in time.
I think,
yeah, you know, Victor Hugo saying, you know, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. And my father was too early.
Right.
Luckily, he had plan B. And I'm here to ride the wave. And I would appear to be now riding the wave, because you need to, sometimes before you can fully understand the right way, you've needed to do the wrong way.
I agree. Sure.
Okay. Now, my father had these ideas 40 years ago. He treated me. And he was simply saying the same thing that he's saying now.
Right.
But no one wanted to listen to him, because at the time, fixed appliances arrived. And well, we can make teeth straight. Why, with all this difficult hassle, teaching people to change? Oh, that's hard work, isn't it?
Right. Yes.
You can just put the brackets on and get straight teeth.
Right. The work it takes to do the work is really challenging all day long.
Oh, yeah. Try and do this naturally without fixed braces. That's really hard work. But put fixed braces on, you'll make the teeth. You know, I don't reckon more than 80% of cases you'll ever get teeth straight. There's a 20% of cases, you know, when I worked in orthodontics, when I did my postgraduate training, from what I've experienced, I think, you know, you'll struggle with that last 20%, regardless of what's happening.
Sure.
So of those 80%, you get the teeth straight in. I think there's 20% that it's like magic. You touch them and the teeth will become perfectly straight. And then there's about, I'd say, a good chance. Then there's your bread and butter group, where you're making, you know, the regular group you make the teeth straight. And then there's a bottom group that another 20% on the bottom. I think I remember working in fixed appliances. There's that group you really struggle with.
Sure.
And that doesn't include the 20% that are just impossible. It doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And so that we forget about this, but you can make teeth straight. My question is then, are we now holding teeth with permanent retention out of their balance zone?
Trying to, and then that's when you see that shift, right?
Yeah, this is much, because you can get the teeth straight, great.
Sure.
But you've made them straight artificially.
Correct.
Then you're going to hold them straight artificially. For how long are we going to hold them straight? Because we know you've got this balance zone. So you've got the lip, you've got the teeth, the bone, and the gum sit in this balance zone. Now, you can hold the teeth with a retainer. Can you hold the bone and the gum with a retainer?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So what's going to happen? You know, holding the one area I notice the bottom is these lower incisors the most. I see people with these low wires behind the lower retainers. They come for visits to me, and I frequently see a lot of recession on those lower front teeth. And I know that if I'm seeing a bit of recession in the gum, there's a lot more recession on the bone.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Makes a ton of
Now,
sense.
what's the best thing to do? Leave that retainer in place and get gum recession and bone loss, or take the retainer off and let the teeth crowd up.
What's the answer?
I don't know. I don't think I've got the answers for all these things. I question whether it might not be better just to let it go.
Okay.
The problem with that is often the lower front teeth act as a keystone to hold everything else. And I don't think there are easy answers. Well, there aren't easy answers. But Stacy, what should these people be doing? Rather than relying on a retainer, changing the balance zone.
Change. Right. Which is what, we do a lot of, at our office. And I have, I will admit, before I knew a lot of this information, my older son, who's now 18, suffered. My younger son, who's 15, actually got myofunctional and mewing and didn't have braces. And when I was introduced to the information, and the difference is enormous. The difference is he sees Karen, and the difference in their airway growth, the difference in the crowding. My son had that, my older son, that lower retainer for a very long time. And the difference in their facial structures is there too, just with the, comparing orthodontics versus orthotropics. I have my own little study right in my house.
Yeah, the problem is though that it's I say one of my comments I say to people frequently is that it's where you place the responsibility. It's it's if I went out onto the street and I got run over by a red double-decker London bus, I'd want modern medicine on my side.
Sure.
I'd want blood transfusions, I'd want antiseptics, I'd want antibiotics, I'd want anesthetics, I'd want knowledge of the infection process and hand washing, all of the, it is incredible what we've achieved.
Right.
There were injuries that 100 years ago, I could have had a 95% chance of dying from, that now I have a 95% chance of surviving.
Sure.
And it's amazing. We shouldn't knock what we've achieved in modern medicine. However, if I have a chronic disease, we could argue, I could argue that we should be looking around for some new ideas.
Agreed.
And the modern medicine hasn't got all the answers. And I could probably also argue that a large element of this chronic disease is related to the mismatch between how we evolved to live and how we are living. Now, that requires change on an individual level.
Great.
And if we're going to now move in to tackle all these chronic diseases, we're going to need individuals to change. You know, I brought the two up like type 2 diabetes. Well, we know that in type 2 diabetes, if you continue, well, we have a lot of evidence that it's diet related. And if you simply try and treat type 2 diabetes with a medicine, is unlikely to work. There is good evidence that these individuals need to change their lifestyle, their diet.
Right.
But who makes money, a liposurgeon or a dietitian?
Exactly.
One drives the Ferrari, the other a bicycle.
Completely. Oh yeah, prevention is not
No, it's not really. I mean, and we're slightly better in the UK because we've got the National Health, and of course the National Health is told to look at prevention. I don't think they could look at as much as they should, but in some areas prevention, we do prevention, but we're not often thinking well enough, and the system will hopefully move into prevention. My goal is prevention. And so I've been a pain in the bottom in the orthodontic establishment.
I know you have.
Absolutely. Oh, you don't know how much of a pain in the bottom I've been. You know,
I'm sure I don't even know the half of it.
So I spent from 2000. So in 2009, I wrote an article called The Black Swan. So if you Google Black Swan, Mike Mew, British Dental Journal, anyone watching, you'll find that. So I did a guest editorial in the British Dental Journal. And I asked my speciality, the British orthodontists, to have a debate on why teeth are crooked. Because I said, listen, if we don't understand the cause of malocclusion, why are we treating it?
Exactly.
Now, you could argue that, all right, there are situations where we don't understand something and you've got to get on. Okay, I'll hand it out. We can do that. All right, well, in those situations, then you should jump at any opportunity to engage in a debate on the course or any scientific engagement on the course.
And I'm assuming nobody wanted to challenge you on that or discuss it.
Well, let me think. So how many letters in the British Dental Journal? How many letters to the British Orthodontic Society? How many letters to the All-Party Dental Committee, the House of Commons? The one question asked in the House of Lords. Basically, I properly did my homework. And I made certain that everyone who in any position of power that could make a difference to this, I wrote to. And I've got a pile of letters this day. Basically, no one was interested. Nope. Remember, in the UK, the government's paying the cost of most orthodontics.
Okay.
No idea what the cost. I'm thinking, so that's, that's where I started in, sure. When I really decided to get radical about, that was in 2009, and starting to move in this direction and say, right, okay, I've now got to put my life where my mouth has always been.
Sure.
And started cracking. So I made certain that I put this, I put this out there. I said, okay, I want to do due diligence. I need to follow the scientific process. The scientific process, it's great. Here we go. Phone. All right. Fantastic piece of equipment. What is it? The iPhone 6 apparently was 100,000 times more powerful than the computers that put man on the moon. Right. I hate to think how much powerful this is. I mean, it's crazy. A supercomputer at my fingertips. We achieved that using the scientific process.
Mhm.
The way I'm talking to you now, this electronic gadgetry, has been achieved using the scientific process. Scientific process is where we basically find answers by having a nice clear mind, removing our prejudices, and weighing up the facts.
Mhm.
And if you don't know the cause, well, that's a really good place to start at.
Right.
If no one wants to engage with me on any form of debate, well, then the scientific process doesn't move forwards.
Correct.
You know, I have an open offer. Anyone watching this, I have an open offer. Any orthodontist anywhere in the world who wants to have a nice open exchange on any core topic within orthodontics, game on. Hey, I've got a YouTube channel. Let's set up a conversation.
I've seen you throw that out there before. Not one person ever, right?
No one. I've never had a proper in-depth conversation about orthodontics with any orthodontist ever. They get upset if I go on to certain subjects. People accuse me of being rude about orthodontics. How can you be rude about a science? You know, we are this tiny, tiny little pale dot in the solar system.
Right.
Now, we've worked out incredible amounts around us using this scientific process. And I think this is the best example I know, because there are storms in a teacup, I'm sure, in this area about, you know, whether a black hole is made of this or that or every other. But at the end of the day, no one's really making money out of it. It's not really that life-threatening what these things are. It's all philosophical. And of course, you have experimental, what would we call them? Was it astrophysics? Anyway, you have an experimental group and you have a philosophical group. And these groups bounce off each other. In medicine, you have the experimental group and no philosophical group.
Mm-hmm.
No one's philosophizing.
Right.
No one's sitting there blue sky thinking.
Right.
No one's cross-questioning the experimenters about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Right.
No one cross-questions anyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a big professor, no one's going to come on your turf and tell you, cross-question what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Terri,
So
we see that same
changing.
thing.
Sorry, say again.
I was just going to say, I agree. I mean, I would see those same things in our field.
Yeah.
I feel like when
we're starting to see it because we're going away from the doctor knows best.
Mm-hmm. And that's very frustrating for them.
Who decides where the research funding goes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, likely in America, likely pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I sometimes with the pharmaceutical companies, I'm thinking, these guys, they are there to make a profit.
Right.
You know, sorry, government should be putting its hand in its pocket to do some of the research that I think some people accuse the pharmacological companies of not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm sure they're not an innocent bystander, the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I don't think they are.
I'm sure they're not. However, remember, they are private companies. They're not here for the public good.
They're there for a profit.
Right. And, you know, particularly in somewhere like the UK, where we do have a publicly funded healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
that is with a great reputation and great ability, you know, we should be having a completely separate group of philosophers who philosophize about treatment outcomes,
Yes.
who other things, who keep the clinical experimenters on their toes.
Exactly.
Because that's what we desperately need.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know why we're so scared to do it.
Well, you try. You try coming up with a comment. You know, you come up with a flyby comment in a load of medics, and is there any evidence? Any evidence?
Right.
You know, any evidence of that? You know, and I go, no, not a shred. but let's sit down and see how we can work this out. Because
Right.
when these philosophical astrophysicists, they just float a boat. They float an idea, and everyone says, well, could we imagine this could be true? All right, what bits of evidence have we got? Let's sort of cross-tabulate this, and that could be it, but we'll hold that as a could be, and this may be a maybe. Oh no, probably not, given all that. Then we'll move on to the next one.
Right.
Whereas, yeah, it's interesting. I think the problem is in medicine that once you have a clinic, once you invested your training in a certain method or technique, it's hard to go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You set something up, that's the way. In theory, every time a new idea comes out in medicine,
Mm-hmm.
we should close an old department down.
Sure.
Jobs should go.
Yep.
Does that happen?
Never.
No.
Not that I know of.
No, this never happens, you see. And this is the problem, because, that, we talk about creative destruction out there, and outside in the real world, we have this creative destruction. And I can understand why we resist that in medicine. I think medicine needs to be conservative. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just go experimenting on people. I'm amazed at sometimes what I see when I go and visit clinics, what people have tried, because I incrementally change things. And I'm really cautious to be conservative and to progress this very gently. And yes, I am now a long, long way from other people.
Mm-hmm.
However, these have been done on, really sensitive, and often very conservative little mini steps to get to that point, reflecting back on what I'm doing.
Sure.
Because, we've got to find answers.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, if the environment does have such a big impact as the evidence clearly shows, then we've got to work out what the most important environmental factors are. And sometimes it can be, life can be strange. I know I upset a lot. I upset a lot of the dentists, even within my group, when we were talking about who could be called an orthotropist. And I said, well, remember, I'm a real radical. Be careful, guys. I'm not saying, and they were, well, it's got to be a dentist with this much experience. And I was going, what? Sorry, if a hypnotist can hypnotize you, make you keep your lips together and affect facial growth, he's an orthotropist. Sorry, what's this dentist? What are his qualifications?
Right.
Sorry, I'm a proper radical, and I'm properly going to shake things up, because there's no, it's not a, how would we say, life's not fair.
Right.
It's not fair. And yes, you've done loads of qualifications and you've got this and that and you've invested in this clinic, but sorry, I need to find out who can gain change,
Mm-hmm.
who can add benefit to this pie.
Right.
And and I'm luckily now I can afford just to be radical, because I can do it,
You could do it.
One of the I just stumbled upon this popularity.
I think
Although, to be fair, we were working very hard to get viral videos and get things out.
Yes. Yes. Your YouTube
So I had a
channel
team
has
of
grown.
people. Oh yeah, we this was my absolute objective. And everyone said, oh, I got lucky with getting viral from video. Well, I was trying to go viral.
Yes. Yes. Your videos have changed so much. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, we were aim on objective to do this. And of course, having gained the public attention,
Mm-hmm.
now it does give me a little bit more room for freedom to continue to do this mission. And I guess, hopefully the right person lucked out. with the
Well, and
right mission.
maybe, interestingly, because I was reading even in the last like week or so, preparing to talk to you, I was just reading some of the comments that people were leaving underneath your YouTube videos. And maybe that's your way in, since you can't ever talk to any of these orthodontists, is just the general public is finally like, well, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And people are electing you for a Nobel Peace Prize online.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, it's going to come to a head in November.
Okay, why is
In
that?
November, I have 3 court cases against me.
Really?
Yeah, so this is going to the General Dental Council, and it's fascinating because, of course, as I said, I did this 6-year letter writing campaign asking for debate on why teeth are crooked. Saying clearly the evidence is that it's the environment, and we're treating people as if it's genetic. So I've got these 3 cases against me, and you read the report from the orthodontist expert for the prosecution, and he says, it's genetic. Nothing you can do. It's all genetic. And I'm thinking, hang around. If the General Dental Council, who I petitioned to hold this debate, had that debate, as they should have, given that they are supposed to be entrusted with protecting patients, then I wouldn't be going to the court.
Right.
And it's tough because when you go, as I said, my viewpoint, and this is what I want to prove, and anyone here, I'm happy to prove this with you, is that the orthodontic establishment has created a scientific house of cards to explain what's happening. Okay.
Right.
And if I go in, and I'm not suggesting people are, I'm not trying to diss all modern orthodontics. I think that, orthodontics can be retractive.
Sure.
We all know that. And every orthodontist watching this, maybe you're not doing that retractive mechanisms. Maybe you're doing good work. But there are some orthodontists out there who do retractive mechanism. We know that, and sometimes that is damaging to people. And you can't brush this stuff under the carpet all the time. And we need to be looking at longer term solutions that are going to include changing your body posture, changing your function. We know that the teeth sit in a balance between the lips and the tongue.
Right.
What the hell are we doing trying to move teeth and not using this balance or attempting to use this balance?
Right.
This is nonsensical.
Right.
And we've got to come clean. And you can't just stand back and just hold back. You can't hold back the tide.
No.
Can't.
Yes, things are changing in America with regard to the CDC just put out changes in developmental milestones where crawling's no longer necessary, where all of these, as opposed to looking at why kids are developing later, why they might be skipping some of these things, and what developmentally is appropriate and skills are attained from this, we'll just push the milestones back. We'll just ignore them. And it makes me fearful of what's going to happen in the future for posture development. What happens with the weight bearing? What happens on your stomach when you're bearing weight? And how all those forces and changes and pulls against gravity are going to change our facial structures that much more.
Again, we're just missing this philosophical branch of medicine. We just need medical philosophy. I bring my court case up because, of course, in November, I go to court and we're going to have a binary answer. Either I'm right or I'm wrong. And that's because of the nature of the case against me, because of the situation, that's going to change medicine.
Wow.
Either I go down and, well, it's going to damage this whole area of medicine badly.
Wow.
Because it's basically this environmentally genetic argument is the core thing in this case. Or I win, and if I win, it will damage the other viewpoint and badly. But sorry, again, I didn't set out to damage orthodontics. I didn't bring these cases against me. I didn't draw first blood.
Right. You set out to
I'm
ask the
defending
questions.
myself. Yeah. And I think it's crazy. I mean, I've got one case where the mother is overjoyed with the treatment. went to see a second opinion for a tongue tie, and the guy reported me. He worked in Brighton Hospital at the department I used to work in.
Wow. And when you say he reported you, what does that mean?
So he reports me to my board, basically.
To the board. Okay.
So we don't have the same thing. That's an American term, the board. We call we have a council.
Okay.
So
and he reported you for doing work that was
doing early treatment.
Doing early treatment.
Yeah.
Oh.
So basically, he reported me for having braces in an 8-year-old child. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
Then the second case, I didn't treat. An associate, so a girl working for me did the treatment. So she was a qualified dentist. She did the treatment, but I planned the treatment, and they only had about 5 or 6 appointments, and they did everything wrong. I mean, the notes, a cacophony of just warnings and don't do this, and oh, you've done that when we told you not to. So the only way you can criticize me on the case is in the concept behind what I did.
Sure.
So it's a very, very philosophical argument against me. No one's saying I've hurt anyone, done anything. I mean, it's a real philosophical argument. Then, of course, the British Orthodontic Society, basically my club, my union, has reported me unanimously in really harsh words for elements of my videos. So they've been through the videos, taken little points they don't agree with.
Okay.
And that will be most interesting. I mean, the way it's panning out, that will be some of the most interesting bits because, sorry, well, I've asked you for a debate on the etiology of malocclusion.
Right.
You've refused to have a debate with me on such a subject like this. And then you're going to cherry pick criticisms and not try to debate it with me, try to have my license removed, extinguished.
And that's the third case?
Sorry,
That's the third case?
That's the third case,
cherry picture videos?
Yeah. I mean, so how can a scientific organization do this? What gives?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, this is, there we go. That is the world of, how Mike Mew gets treated.
But your view is, tell us a little bit about your actual view. Like if you had to summarize for a parent, what is your summary?
So, going to summarize. All right. So go back 10,000 years. Mm-hmm. All of humans had these huge, great big dental arches. You imagine that guy. See this guy walking out the African Serengeti, Brazilian rainforest, or Australian outback. Same. Any indigenous person alive today. Mm-hmm. They stand up beautifully well. Absolute beautiful posture. Look at this. Some Masamara guy. Absolutely beautiful body posture. Fantastic physical form. Mm-hmm. Great facial bone structure. Big, broad dental arches with all 32 teeth. Never seen an orthodontist. Doesn't wear retainers for the rest of his life. Huge, great big space in there. Uh-huh. Think of that. As I said, a centimeter behind his wisdom teeth, spare space. And that broad, the arch is massively wide. Think of the tongue space he's got. Mm-hmm. Now, he is genetically identical to his, well, actually, I'll rephrase that slightly better. Okay, he looks more like your ancestors than you did. Mm. He looks just like your ancestors. And you're genetically identical to your ancestors. No genetic change.
Oh, mm-hmm.
So what's happened? Okay.
Got it.
So we've moved from this incredibly rough, tough, hard diet to this incredibly soft diet. I could, if I tried, in a big cup, I'll try not to advertise some firm in the UK of previous heritage or practices. what was I saying? Yes. So you have gone from this really, really tough diet to this really, really soft diet. In this glass, I could probably put 700, 800 calories. You know, if I made a nice hot chocolate with some marshmallows, bit of cream and some syrups, you'd get that many calories in.
Sure.
How much chewing did you need to do to get that down?
Yeah, none.
So you've now taken in what? A quarter of your daily calorific intake for no effort at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your ancestors couldn't do that. You know, and also, you know, in the past, if you wanted a nice pair of moccasins, well, there was no shop to go out to. You were going to chew that leather. That's a lot of chewing.
Yeah.
You know, we estimate these guys could have been using their jaw system a third of the day.
Wow.
And I recently, I invested in a air dryer. So my health is just awful at the moment. So I've got Crohn's disease and I'm trying to live and survive. So what I've been trying to do is air dry meat. So buy meat and air dry it to make myself like a biltong. It's like beef, South African version of beef jerky. It's called biltong. And I'm drying the meat. And I tell you, you can make that rock hard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a hunter-gatherer, you have a kill, you've got no refrigerator, no freezer, no salt. I mean, everyone goes, oh, you can salt it. Oh, great. Where are you going to get salt from? So you take these strips, you dry these strips of meat, and that's going to keep you alive until the next kill, plus the gathering that you do. Now, a month or two down the line, that is like boot leather.
Mm-hmm.
And it is really tough. I mean, I tell you, I've a month I've had some of this stuff, and that is like hellishly hard. You know, you really have to use every muscle in your face to get through this stuff.
Right.
And that's what people would have eaten. You know, I remember meeting 2 instances of anthropologists telling me how tough the food was. You know, one of them said that he was invited to the chief of a tribe, and the chief announced that this was the best piece of meat, you know, or something about meat. But the chief had referred to the meat, and he knew the context and importance of finishing the food. And he said he couldn't. His jaw just going into Christmas. And he can't get this bit of meat, not one bit, nothing. And the chief, who's in his 70s, is just going, dong.
Yeah.
Didn't flinch. And it says, you know, there's just this gross change.
Yeah.
And then that's one big element of change.
Yes.
You know, move from this incredibly tough diet to this incredibly soft diet. You know, none of these muscles.
Right.
My muscles are pathetic compared to theirs.
Interesting.
Then we've gone and got nasal blockages. I'm not an expert on why we're getting nasal blockages, but we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's going up like crazy. I mean, you know, asthma, hay fever, these things are just, it's going like up. At school, I was the asthmatic. That's it. There's no one in the year above me, no one in the year below me. I was the asthmatic.
Interesting. And I would
How
assume
many
you were
kids-
working on your jaw when you were young, right? You had a nice open airway from your dad.
Yeah, but remember, he didn't. Yeah, I mean, he did treat me, so I've been adulterated.
Got it.
But and I'm sure even my asthma was nothing like what the kids get these days.
Mm-hmm.
But and I was a bit allergic, and you know, allergies going up. And of course, if you do get a blocked nose, you've got an option. You breathe out your mouth, or you don't breathe at all.
Correct.
Now, I'm thinking that the tongue to palate reflex contact is a very, very deep intuitive reflex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talk about lots of these primitive reflexes that we can gain or lose. And I mean, there's a lot talked about this. And I've not seen anyone talking about the tongue. And I think this reflex, tongue to palate contact, is so vitally important. Forget the others. they're coming down on small scale for tongue to palate. Tongue to palate is the most important reflex. Every muscle, well, not every, most muscles in the body are attached at both sides, both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Tongue can't be.
Right.
Because you need to speak and open your mouth to eat.
Right.
But it pretends it's contacted on the other end. It's got this imaginary contact.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, really hardwired into us. You remember, I don't you remember, you go back to any of those old-fashioned textbooks,
Mm-hmm.
and it always has an arrow to above the tongue, and it says negative pressure. Have you spotted any of those? Go back to the old textbooks. It always has negative pressure. I don't know why they bothered putting it in, but they always have. And now you see, whenever I look at these cone beam X-rays or even TEFs, but cone beam is more interesting. Remember, you can't take cone beams like you do in the States anywhere else in the world.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Really? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm like, the amount you take them. I'd lose my license. But one patient, let alone
Why
a
is
second
that?
or a third.
Is that like the amount of radiation, or why is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I know that's true in Australia, Europe, South Africa, Britain. I think it's the States and Canada that I don't know why anyway.
They seem very routine. Yes.
Yeah, amazingly routine. I mean, anyway. I guess you get on a flight, you travel over the Atlantic, you don't think about it, but you know. So, where were we? We were talking about
Tongue to palate.
This tongue to palate force. I think it's a really. So I notice how the tongues are down on these tone beams. I see it all the time. None of them with a negative pressure, with the tongue literally stuck to the roof of the mouth.
Right.
And then, of course, there's lip seal. Now, a lip seal, it's a sphincter, the same as your bottom. Well, different actually, but it's another sphincter. All right, don't lose sphincter control. It's a bad idea.
No, let's not.
Yeah, but I think this sphincter's. I tell you, I reckon you're in worse poo-poo if you lose this sphincter than the other one.
I definitely need that.
You definitely need that.
Definitely need it.
And of course, if you mouth breathe, you're going to lose both those that reflex and that sphincter control.
Mm-hmm.
And because what's the most important thing in your life?
So many things. Eating,
Breathing. That's top of mind.
Right.
So the
Not
desire
through
to
your
breathe.
sphincter. You don't want to breathe through your sphincter, though.
No, but that goes above the sphincter.
Right.
And that's the point, you see, because the body's got this order of things in it. And because that sphincter's up there right at the top, because breathing's above sphincter control, throw them away.
Right.
You've got to breathe.
Right.
Now, that period of a blocked nose will pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I see then it's a graduation, because if you've become a mouth breather, you've had to destroy your tongue to palate reflex and your oral sphincter, and then hang your mouth open and mouth breathe. Now, you may well return to breathing through your nose. Will you return to having lip seal? Will you return to having your tongue on the roof of your mouth?
Right. No.
Well, I think some people,
without a ton of practice.
Not well. What you'll notice is that in the pubertal, so physios talk about pubertal. I can't remember. They've got some phrase that in posture, as you hit your teenage years, lots of people improve their body posture. Of course, there can be some people go, "Hey, I'm a teenager now. Oh, I do what I want." Yeah. However, many people, on average, people improve their posture because at about this age, you start becoming self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my 6-year-old will wander around the house without any underwear on. And, you know, I'd not do that. You know, and what's happened in that period of time?
Right.
As you become older, you become self-aware. You see other people looking at you, and as soon as you see other people looking at you, you care then about how you look and what you do and how you present yourself with your projection onto other people. And well, you learn to stand up straighter and keep your mouth shut more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a natural tendency. And I think that that tendency underlies huge numbers of things I see in orthodontics, because we tend to think, we've got this natural assumption to assume that when you see someone, they have grown directly to that place.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think about the journey on which they've gone to gain what you now see.
Right.
And lots of people don't go in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
And also what you might find is people may be getting better or worse when you try to intercede treatment.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've got someone who's learned to keep their lips together during puberty, they're getting better at that moment in time. Their general situation is improving, and you can factor that in if you know what's happening. And lots of things change people over a period of time, you know, going to new schools, death in a family, you know, parental death. I've seen that, you know, it's very sad, but I've seen how it's changed people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, something as profound as that.
Right.
You know, I remember seeing some, you know, interesting study of faces on who had been in, you know, a war situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had these pictures of them because clearly they were conscripts. You had them before and after this war, and you could see, okay, clearly they were trying to demonstrate how harrowed these guys had been, but their jaws squared up and their faces shortened from being in a, you know, really stressful situation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a little bit of that, you know, again, it's that pubertal thing of you've got some get up and go, you know, grit your teeth and get going. All right, grit your teeth and get going. All right, what's that going to do for your craniofacial structure?
Right. Right. Shorten it up.
And
that jaw. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So anyway, so my broad perspective is
Mm-hmm.
that we've got weak muscles,
Yep.
and we're now hanging our mouths open because we've lost our sphincter and our reflex. Okay. So if you're doing this, your face is going to get longer.
Mm-hmm.
As your face gets longer, you've only got so much face, so it will be narrower and shallower.
Right.
Done. Okay.
Yeah.
Less cross-sectional area. That's your problem.
Right.
The real problem, though, is we took all of our X-rays and what we refer to as our normative data in this profession in the middle of the last century.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When did we start gaining changes in our environment? About 10,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we started, the process starts 10,000 years ago, has been continuing. I would imagine it's accelerating.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, yeah. Based on what I see.
You know, a good tidbit of information. So my grandfather was taught by Harold Chapman in the UK. He was taught if you didn't have enough space between all of the upper incisors for a half crown, that is 2 millimeters, then you were going to, at around 4 to 6, around 5, then you were going to have problems in the future.
Okay.
Now, when we think about that, and when you read what Harold Chapman wrote, it seems to be relatively clear that he felt that it was a minority of the population that needed treatment.
Right.
So of a minority of people in this is the 1920s, didn't have that much space between their teeth. Yet, how many people do you see now in the 2020s, 100 years later, who have had that much space.
Yeah, not many. Not the kids we see.
Not the kids I see ever.
Mm-mm.
Ever.
Very tight, very tight. Very small jaws,
And
very tight.
so now that's just to plot that last 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I was a betting man, I would say that that graph is going exponential. It's not linear.
Right.
That means change is happening faster than we think.
Yes, I would agree.
You know, well, I mentioned earlier on that one of the things I felt was that it's not what we have to do the wrong thing first. You know, no one was going to listen to my father 40 years ago when fixed braces were coming in and this was wonderful. Yet I would say 50% of the parents coming to see me now, when I chat to them and they say, look, don't care what he has as long as it's not what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if I'm right, so what I'm again, let me give it. I'm saying that because we took our normative data in the 1960s or 50s and 60s, that means we think someone like this face looks is normal. I'm anything but normal. Hold me up against a hunter-gatherer, and I look nothing the same.
Right.
So if you're thinking that I am not a diseased individual, then you don't understand the disease.
Right.
And if you put your foundation stone in the wrong place,
Yep.
you're really starting to mess with your thinking.
That makes perfect sense. Never even thought of it like that.
And then you assume stable structures are stable in cephalometrics. You start thinking that you start thinking that you're familiar with Andrew's 6 keys of malocclusion. This is what the orthodontist they term, So I've got someone here. This is what we think of straight teeth. I've got straight teeth here. They look pretty straight. There's no wisdom teeth here. Even this arch that looks big is narrow.
Right.
You shouldn't have cusps on your teeth. Who has cusps?
Mm-hmm.
Modern people, yes, yeah. None of our ancestors never had cusps. Cusps are gone within 2 years of a tooth erupting.
Wow, really?
Cusps aren't, no teeth have cusps. You normally have an anterior bite at the front because the teeth are worn down like this. The canines are a front tooth. They're almost purely at the front. They're slightly angled and they're worn flat. So there's no canine guidance. That's a modern thing.
Wow.
Never exists. I mean, when I mean there's no canine size, no individuals in our ancestry ever had canine guidance, ever. Never happened.
Didn't know that.
And then you've got this helicoidal wear pattern. And remember, we had this for hundreds of thousands of years. It is absolutely mind-blowing. In the history of humanity, it's only in the last 5 minutes that we're, haven't had space for wisdom teeth. It's in about the last minute that teeth are crooked. It's probably in the last 30 seconds that anyone decided to do orthodontics.
Wow. Yeah.
Out the last year of humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just deep time is so difficult to understand.
Yeah.
People they had one generation, another generation. It just goes on and on and on. You don't think about it, on and on, and that goes. You can't imagine deep time. It doesn't make sense to us now.
Yeah.
We're what of a meeting today. Oh yeah. But I'm not saying we can turn the clock back. I'm not saying that we need to make people have this wear pattern, or you shouldn't have cusps, or you have anterior wear like that. What I'm just saying is that if we want to understand the disease process, we've got to be honest.
Yep.
And we've got to actually be aware of where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
Right. And unless you can ask questions.
And
I said, unless you can ask questions without.
unless you can ask questions. I mean, you can see, and also what you've got to understand that I'm deeply affected. You're both affected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm everyone. You're not going to meet any unaffected person. And the problem is when everyone you see is affected, then being affected becomes normal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, what around me is normal here.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a natural occurring room.
Right. Right.
Clothes aren't normal.
Right. Braces are normal now. I mean, everyone talks about it.
Exactly. Everyone's got them. I had a girl a while ago.
Getting them?
Yeah. I had a girl who said that she was the only one in her class without fixed braces. I mean, anyone listening, remember braces there's many different types of braces. This is a brace, they're not just fixed braces.
Mm-hmm.
But this girl told me that everyone else in her class had fixed braces on. And since I was treating her, that meant everyone in that class had some type of orthodontic appliance on.
Yeah.
And these aren't small interventions.
Right.
Just because everyone has them, don't sort of lull yourself into the sense that this is a simple thing. It's you're affecting a really important part of your head.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Your head is quite an important part of your body.
My head is very important. Yes.
It's my favorite bit of my body.
Exactly. Couldn't live without it.
And there's lots of bits you could live without. Heads are not one of them.
Heads are not one. You keep your head, keep your mouth. Let's keep all that.
And so, and I think you're right. I think I'm just calling for discussion. I love to be wrong.
Sure.
Please prove me wrong. Anyway,
Yes.
how do I learn unless I'm wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, it's people that are scared to be wrong that won't step up and talk to you about it, or scared to change, I guess, or add on to
Yes. Yeah, very true. But anyway, so carrying on my little story here, as you get a reduction in the cross-sectional area, well, this bit of the body is quite important. What have you got to do? You've got to speak, you've got to eat, you've got to both rest and function with your tongue and this apparatus. And as you start losing space, you've got to come up with compromises. So you've got to find a place where your tongue can function and posture where it doesn't affect the other important processes.
Right.
The most important process being breathing.
Right.
So you've got to come up with strategies so that you can breathe normally. Now, the first strategy almost everyone comes up with is a forward head posture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the simplest and easy way to open your airway. You do CPR, ABC. What is the A for? Airway. The first thing you do is tip people's head back. Opens your airway up. Well, of course, what we're doing is exactly the same thing. We're going from this. That looks stupid.
Right.
So you've moved your head forward. Then, of course, your shoulders have to go forward, but you're opening your airway. And, I say to people, I frequently say, I get lots of people. So I talk about these two forms of faces, an upswung or downswung.
Mm-hmm.
And all the problems are overlaid on top of that. The most basic issue is whether your face is upswung, it's forward growing, or whether it's downswung, it's vertical growing.
Okay.
Now, if you've got good muscles and you keep your mouth together, tongue hopefully on the roof of the mouth, then your face grows forward, you're upswung. If you hang your mouth open and you've got weak muscles, your face will. Seen someone who's had a stroke. What's going to happen? And that's only the surface muscles.
Right.
I've seen people who have had car accidents, road traffic accidents. They've cut their trigeminal nerve. Whoa, it's unbelievable how that face just drops down.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's fast. It's predictable, and it's profound. And it happens, you know it's going to happen.
Right.
So what I'm saying is what's happened to modern man is a bit like a bilateral profound stroke to everyone. And everyone's dropped down. You can't see the wood for the trees. So our understanding of what normal has been really badly affected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so I've got a lot of people whose faces are so downswung, you couldn't get them to stand up straight. You can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you imagine they've got the angel on one side where they said, Mike makes a very good point. I need to stand up straight. And they're trying to do this.
Right.
They've got the devil on the other side that says, breathe.
Right. Right.
And what are they going to do?
They're going to listen to the devil.
Yeah, of course they are. Because I remember I worked in the city, bang in the city of London on Fleet Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a practice on the first floor British style. That means one level up, having a floor.
Okay.
And so I remember the girl came in and, posture all over the place. And I gave her some tips and hints. We worked on her posture. I said, look, really, that's the main thing. She left and I happened to be looking out the window. And it's a very busy central London location. So it's a busy street in front of us. She stood on the edge of the pavement in beautiful body posture. Looks both ways, has to navigate a couple of cars. By the time she's got to the other side of the road, she's lost it.
Wow. Yeah.
Clearly getting run over was her primary concern at that moment. Gone. As soon as you take your attention off it. And that's one of the big problems, that once you've got structure here that is inhibiting you, it's really hard to change. Now, the next thing that happens is that then you can select different ways to accommodate your tongue and lip. Okay? And there's a pattern here. So the most common thing to do is just hang your tongue down evenly between your teeth.
Right.
And then evenly space your tongue out. And that will give you a class 1 malocclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's the most common thing around the world for people to do. By the way, I don't believe freeway space is normal.
Okay.
I think freeway space is a modern thing. I'd go back probably 500 years, and I don't think you'd have freeway space. Okay. A modern aberration. Okay. But there we go. It's an interesting debate we could have on that. Now, then there's you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way of getting your tongue out your airway. It's going to give you class 2 division 1. And interestingly, it's really popular in the Caucasian groups. Really popular in the Caucasian groups, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the drop your tongue in your mouth and hold your mouth forward.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great coping strategy for having less space.
Mm-hmm.
What malocclusions are going to give you?
Mm-hmm. 3.
Yeah.
Yep. Mesial occlusion.
And of course, your maxilla is going to collapse because your tongue's not there.
Yep.
Then you could just push the tongue forwards.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you've grown perfectly, yeah, and you drop down a little bit and push your tongue forward, you're going to look like you've got bimaxillary protrusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But I look at bimaxillary protrusion very, very differently. I'm saying that if you've got ideal here and you're dropping down to class 1, you drop down to class 2, or you drop down to class 3, bimaxillary protrusion is dropping down here and being then forward here. It all depends where you place your normal point. Your ideal point would be a better way of looking at it. And if you really set your ideal point, you look at everything differently.
Right.
So you've got these different patterns of malocclusion are realistically different coping strategies. Oh, I forgot the last one. So the last one is where you can roll your tongue back between your back teeth and wedge it sideways, brace it, okay? And then you can even bite on that. And sometimes you get people with quite good muscle tone doing that. And that causes a bilateral posterior open bite. Okay?
That would be
because
more
what
rare,
you're doing,
you think?
say it again?
That would be more rare, you think?
I know, you just call it different. You call it a deep bite.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You determine it differently. How many, you know, people don't, deep bite people have huge, great big freeway space, don't they? So what you've done is asked someone to bite together in a position they're never normally in for very long.
Right.
So you can take your records and go, I'm reproducible.
Looks good.
Do you know what a Brody bite is?
Do I what?
Brody bite is when you bite like this. None of the teeth touch.
Oh, wow.
So what you do is you get, you get a nice piece of, get something, often a lollipop, a popsicle stick. You put it between the teeth, bite on that, and then take your photographs.
Okay.
Well, why are we doing that for deep bites? Opening the back of most people with a deep bite, sizes line up perfectly. Until they bite together.
Right.
The jaw joint's fine until they bite together. The jaw joint's perfectly set up where they rest, where they are most of the time.
Right.
And you just, when you start, it's all about looking at things from a different angle.
Sure.
And when you start, when you stop calling it a deep bite, you call it bilateral posterior open bite, then you think about it differently.
Sure. Absolutely.
And then it makes more sense. And, yeah. So in a way, that is my sort of description of malocclusion and how we've got to the point we've got to at the moment. And of course, I put this information online. Well, I think it was the it was a program. Having tried so hard to get things go viral, I happened by chance to do a video for something I think called the 21 Convention.
Was that your first one that went viral? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what that did was I had some Google alerts out on my name, which is always a good thing to do when you're getting going. I couldn't cope with a Google alert on my name nowadays because I don't have the time, energy, or resources to track who's using my name.
No.
But at the time, because I've got quite a unique name, it was easy enough to have a Google alert for Mike Mew.
Yeah.
And we then found people talking about that video online in some very dubious incel-related forums. Clearly, I had no idea what an incel or what these things were at the time.
Right.
And in my genuine interest to make people better, I went and started responding to these people. And I found it was easier to make a video to respond to them. And in a way, I kind of wanted to promote myself a little bit, but actually, I just really enjoy answering and explaining these things like I'm to you today. There's something about being, that's the thing of a doctor. You want to make people better. You want to explain these things.
Right.
So I started doing so, and it was easier to make a video and put a video out to respond to many questions at the same time.
Mhm.
And I'd already, coincidentally, I had taken on this guy who was trying to help me market. So I had a guy trying to really help me get something to go viral. And it worked out that if you put a video on YouTube, the video on YouTube gets almost as many, SOE hits, whatever that is,
Okay.
as your website.
Mm.
Just one video, almost as good as your website.
Oh, wow.
So we thought, particularly at the time, because I think Google had just bought YouTube. So we thought, let's make lots and lots of videos.
Mhm.
Quick video. Literally, they would give me a list of subjects. They wouldn't even tell me. I would stand in front of the camera. There we go. Right, talk for 5 minutes on open bite. Then talk for 5 minutes on this. No script, no nothing. I would just talk.
Mhm.
And then we would label that as and throw it out there.
Right.
And I'd make some things on the board. I'd have a moment to think about it, make some drawings on the board, and then talk about it. But what that meant, I had lots and lots and lots of videos, all these different subjects. And of course, here's me going, God, that's all right, but it's a bit dull. I wish I could talk about all these things in my head. Remember, I remember telling Nick Lang at school, and I must have been, what, 12? And I'm talking about this subject. I had it in my head all this time.
All this time.
I had to go through dental school and listen. I had to go through orthodontic school, was harder.
That would be hard. That'd be tricky.
That was, it was so nice. I was in Denmark, and they're just so nice in Denmark, and they listen to other people, but and I don't think it took much in from what I'm saying. Me asking them why are teeth crooked, with this stunned silence in the university.
Right.
Oh, it doesn't really matter.
You hush.
Anyway, for me, I wanted to get this information out there.
Right. And
It was really-
that viral video what burst that New York Times article? A big New York Times article on you and your dad?
Oh,
Stacey, I've lost you.
Oh, are you
Stacey,
back?
could you repeat the question?
Yes. Is that
We've still lost her.
I think we've lost her.
me?
Hey, I'll talk about that viral video anyway.
Yes, I will.
That viral video was, you can go and look it up. It was at the 21 convention. The type of video I probably wouldn't give now, because I'd get the advice of don't do that because you're talking to the wrong group and you're setting yourself up. I find this stuff quite strange. But I would I set it was to a group of it was a young audience, and I was told what the audience were and what they'd be interested in, and it's designed to a group of young men, basically, about how you can make yourself look better. And I don't really know why they found me or they wanted me to speak, but it just got me, it gave me a completely different audience. And it's gone in that direction.
Right. And is that what birthed that newer
it's now.
Uh-oh. Can you see me?
Stacey, you're sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, you're not tracking very well though.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Can you see me now?
Well, if you could, yeah. I can hear you better than I can see you.
Oh, man.
No worries.
Yeah, you're back, Stacey.
Technical flaws.
I'm back now?
You
I
can
back?
ask your question. We can hear you.
Well, now I forgot
We can hear
my
you.
questions. I was so verklempt.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
But-
Terri, do you have a question?
Nope. Carry on.
I mean, what hits me is just the level of penetration that I've got in the population. Because I don't go out much. I've got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I work far too hard. And of course, we've not exactly the last 2 years, people haven't been going out much.
Right.
So I am stopped about every third, so every quarter, someone stops me in the street or supermarket or you know, the gym or something, and just says, "Oh, are you Dr. Mew?" Now, when I stop and think about that, you've got to realize that penetration of people that I must have achieved for that to occur.
Right.
Because what I get a lot more is odd looks.
Oh, you do?
Well, you think that if someone's going to come up and say, "Are you Dr. Mew?" there must be quite a few people who think, first, they don't even reckon, they just know they've seen me somewhere.
Mm.
And, or they're just too embarrassed to come up and ask.
Right.
You know, I never remember leaving the theatre down in Rye. So I went to the theatre in Rye, and there's this bloke holding the door open for me. And I know him, and I can't place him. And I give him this sort of look like, oh yeah, you must be a friend of my father's or something, you know, that sort of look. You know, I was quite young at the time. I gave him this nod and, you know, walked by, and he gave me this really nice, understanding look back. It was Paul McCartney. Of course, he must be thinking in his head, "I know what's going on in your head. You think you know me, but you can't place me." Of course you can't place me because, you know.
Shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it. Okay.
So it is in the same way, people catch me and I can see they look at me and then they look away. Now, if I've gained that penetration, what is it? 5% of the population have at least browsed over me.
Yes.
Think what that means.
Well, and I think just a shout out to the generation, you know, the younger generations than us, Gen Z especially. You're very, and I know this because I have teenage boys, that literally we were talking about something, and my son came home and said, you know, mewing came up last night at this party. And I was like, how is that possible that like the 15 to 17-year-old American boys, they had this long discussion about mewing? I just thought that was so unique and so cool. And I know the internet has brought that to them where they can discern for themselves information that makes sense and discuss things that maybe haven't gone through that method, but that to them makes sense. And now they're all doing it. And I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And you know, what really amazed me and what really made me realize that this movement had got going was when I saw the outcomes. You know, you go and look at mewing results, and there's a lot of really significant outcomes.
Right.
Now, you can bet your money a hell of a lot of people aren't posting their photographs, haven't got good photographs, took bad angles that you can't see it on.
Right.
And the number of letters I get from people who are just saying, "Oh, you know, my sleep apnea's gone. My pains and necks." I mean, that's a really common thing for people to say to me, that, you know, pain in the neck's gone. A friend of mine who's an anaesthetist who's gone into digital medicine and actually doesn't do medicine anymore. I went for dinner with him. We're sitting there and I gave him what my main technique. And he just goes, "Mike, I didn't tell you, but I've had this really difficult pain in my neck. And I have been on the hunt in the last 5-6 years for anyone to help me with it. And you just fixed it." I had this dinner table with one exercise, half-heartedly done.
Right. Powerful.
And also people just telling me stories, saying, "Thank you, because I now know the problem."
Right.
You know, I've always understood, like jaw joint problem. I mean, in my view, it's so obvious and simple. You know, there's so many, you know, as I explained malocclusion to you, all of these things, when you stop, and the most important thing you've got to do is take the normative point, you know, the average point, and move it off center. And then stand there and look at it differently. And then all of a sudden it starts making sense.
Right.
You know, when you think about us as me being anywhere close to being normal, then it's a world of mush and, paint by numbers. I mean, most orthodontic systems I know are a sort of grandiose paint by numbers.
Yeah.
Bill Hang's phrase, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's harsh. I mean, I don't mean to be that harsh with orthodontics, but, sorry, this is a disease that is caused by the environment.
Right.
What we need to do is gain changes in people's, how they live.
Right.
Stand up straight and shut your mouth. Is that a new idea?
That's not a new idea. That's not a new idea. And so for people listening who maybe don't know what mewing is, what is it?
Okay, well, this is interesting because we're trying to come up with I'm trying, hopefully within 2 months, we'll have the app out.
Right, which I'm excited
But and that actually probably defines it better. But basically, is trying to get your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth at rest. So realistically, your tongue should be stuck on the roof with that negative pressure. And I talking to Dad, and also someone who inspired me was a woman called Angela Kane, who if you look up a voice gym. So Stacy, you'd find this fascinating because she was what's her name? She taught people how to sing. And she was finding more and more that if you didn't gain some expansion, people with narrow arches, well, actually, what she found out, she had quite a few singers that went to, who came to see her, who were destroyed. And what had happened is, as they progressed up the fame level, they got to the point when someone said, "Sort your teeth out." They went and had extractions, couldn't sing anymore.
Oh, wow.
They lost their range and ability. They lost their singing ability. According to her, I hear shouting explosions and things about extractions because I need to be cautious on that one. So she started getting people to gaining some expansion. And she came big into, so she started working with some local orthodontists, gaining some expansion. And she had a whole theory about it. And of course, I went around to try to have a look at her theory. One of my oaths to myself and to the world has been to leave no stone unturned in my quest for the truth. Because you just don't know what I find often is that people who have got some element of the truth often come up with the wrong explanation of why that works. Someone from modern medicine who, let's call them a little bit more skeptical, could look at what they're doing, have a check their explanation and say, "Oh, well, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. What a load of fool, idiot. Let's move on." And you've completely forgotten that actually the person themselves was wrong about why it worked.
Right.
And there was an element in there that was working, that was genius. Gold dust. And I think there's nuggets of gold lying around all over the place. And, so much, that brings me to my other oath, is to control my ego.
Important to do.
Ego's the big destroyer, isn't it?
It is. When you stop being humble, you stop learning.
Yeah. When your ego, you stop learning. As soon as your ego, I'm just having a Facebook conversation with someone who, who said, "Oh, this is the cause of sleep apnea." No, said sleep apnea is multifactorial. And I said, yeah, I don't think it is, because sleep apnea is not my big thing, but I think sleep apnea and malocclusion are caused by the same thing. Because of course, as soon as your face drops down, downswings, okay, your tongue's going in your airway.
Right.
And of course, what I've seen is just like in orthodontics, people love to segment and grade and classify and come up with. Well, if you've forgotten we were here and everyone's dropped down here, if you're just looking around here, I'm sure you can do precisely what's happening in orthodontics when we come up with these different grades and classifications and different compartments, and forget that, well, if we were up here, you wouldn't have any of it. None of it. None of this would exist.
Right.
So as I explained to you why I think we get these different patterns of malocclusion, why we get class 1, class 2, class 2, 3, or class 2 div 1 or class 2 division 2, which is the posterior bilateral deep bite.
Mhm.
When those classifications, they're all here. And that's why malocclusion, orthodontists see malocclusion as a variation around the norm.
Right.
And that makes total sense if you took your standard records in the 1960s and 50s. Whereas if you realize ideal is here, suddenly, bang, your mind's changed. Everything goes in here, and then you'll cure it.
Right.
And I would question whether the same thing is true within sleep apnea.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
then it's not really multifactorial, because it's the same causes I just gave you to begin with would be the main overriding causes. That causes the gross change in craniofacial structure.
Right.
And by the way, I shouldn't forget then, within this area here, we also have clearly, best or bottle feeding, swallowing patterns, accents, habits,
Right.
lots of other things. I didn't really go into those. They're more the ones that you're normally going to get associated with anyway. I'm sure lots of other people can come on this channel and talk in more depth
Right.
and with more knowledge on
Maybe.
those subjects.
I doubt your
looking at
knowledge
this-
seems pretty deep.
I'm just looking at the big, broad sort of big one, the thing that overall can training this structure.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think I've worn myself out of speaking at that moment, and I'm sure I've lost some ties that I'm
Well, it has been
trying to run in
amazing
the back of my
information.
mind.
I'm super excited about all of it. I love the perspective you gave us. I love thinking about the top things that we need to do. I think these are all things that we talk about, Terry and I, daily. We talk about posture, we talk about diet, swallow function.
And we've got to work towards prevention.
Right. Early intervention has always been Terry and I. It's been our key. It's why we're
Prevention.
trying to educate.
Well, okay. You know what my rules on prevention are?
Tell me.
Go ahead.
First of all, chew gum. Ipso facto, as much as possible, all the time.
Okay.
Okay, that's the most important thing. Then I'm big into lip taping.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend, as a Hatman, because I was doing a consultation over this, the white micropore for night.
Yep.
Okay. The blue silicon micropore during the daytime.
Okay.
And what you do with this stuff is you take a little bit like this. Little silicone, so this is about much of it, less than 100 millimeters, I usually say.
Got it.
But what you do is you place it on the surface of any device your child uses.
Perfect.
They must never be using that device without tape, because they have to take the tape off to use the device.
Love
if you catch them without the tape on, 5 minutes, fine. Simple.
I like it.
But also, then you can take these bits of tape and you can put them on. So most kitchen cupboards have that glossy surface, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Or even I've got in my kitchen, I've got several windows because we've got window cupboards. I've got a set of cupboards. So one for Jessica, one for Zarina. That on that bit of glass is your lip tape. Sometimes it gets muddled up, but whatever. And of course, what you can do, you can just slap it on, because you didn't have to go and pick the reel up.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to do anything. It was there.
Okay.
It was quick, ease of use. I even sometimes have them on my wallet. I have one on my wallet because you can the blue silicone is more expensive. It's quite expensive tape actually, but it's basically blue micropore silicone.
Okay.
And it can but you can reuse it. So I would say usually about 3 seals or something on it, 3 days at a time.
Perfect.
And you put it in there. if you can get kids chewing and lip taping, you're better than me.
Awesome.
I can sometimes. I but you know, you can't always.
I
And then
watched
the
your
next
video
thing-
when you had the wooden spoon that you were sliding
Yeah.
under your daughter's arm. That was
I'm coming to that. Coming to that. The
okay.
next thing is, if you happen to see your child sitting there like this, and for some reason there's no lip tape around, there's something going on, and you want to tell them close their lips, you don't say close your lips. You just put your hand in front of the screen.
Right. Try to make it
In
there.
fact, whatever they're doing, I'll just come out and put my hand in front of their eyes. And that means sit up straight, lips together.
Mhm.
Because I'm not going to move my hand until you have. And how much energy are the parents you're treating going to first gain their child's attention when they're watching a device,
Mhm.
Right.
then tell them what to do,
Yeah.
the child to actually register the information coming in, because your brains are way miles away, and then to do it. Oh,
Right.
I tell you, it could be 10 minutes,
Right.
and it can be an ordeal. When you
was
just
gonna
put your
say.
hands in front of their eyes,
Right.
done. How much effort was that?
Right. And no battles. Didn't turn
No
into
battles,
anything.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want the battles. You hey, have a good time. Can't see anything. No. Why?
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah, you're going to have a laugh with these things.
It's gonna be great.
Then we got, and then the final, it's the mealtime exercise.
Which
I
I
mean,
love.
What? Yeah. What? Basically, it is. Sit up straight, elbows off the table, eat with your mouth shut.
That's it.
Chew
It's
your
hard to
food
do.
properly.
It's hard to do.
So what we're trying to do, we're about to do this. I haven't actually implemented. This is the next meet I'm going to have, because I'm trying to change the whole way we do myofunctional therapy here. What we're going to have is the children bringing their food in and eating it in front of us.
Yeah.
To show they can eat their food. And then all of the exercises will be added to make certain that they can gain that.
Right.
So I don't give them exercises. I'm worrying my functional therapy, we're giving people exercises they're never going to do.
Right.
No, kids don't do exercises for the sake of it. They do exercises to achieve something.
Right.
So if you set them the goal of being able to sit in front of you and give a perfect, a textbook deportment, Victorian style exercise. All you need to do is you then give them the myofunctional therapy exercises to help them improve that. You video it and tell them, oh, well, you were wrong here, 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 here. Next time, your examination is going to be better.
Right. Perfect.
Okay?
Yep,
Because,
we do that as well.
And you just take a video and get mum to send a video of the exercise.
Yep.
And then every day they have to do that exercise at dinner.
Yep.
And a top tip is you have to get the mother to sit physically opposite them with a spoon. I have to all the time. I tell you, it's a never-ending battle.
Well,
Elbows
I love
off
the
the
video.
table. So I'll use a spoon. I'll use a spoon. I'll go there under the mouth.
Or you
I
even
think
use
it-
it there. I just saw the slide on the elbow.
Yeah, but we've modified now.
Oh, you've modified.
So I'll just what I'll often do is come home, and I want the next thing I'm going to really be pushing is family meals.
Mhm. Important.
You sit as a family and you eat your food together.
Right. And the work that we give kids requires a lot of imitation. I mean, to get
Yeah.
it done. So we
Yeah,
encourage.
well,
them as
you sit as a family. I mean, and it sounds so old school, and I'm sure that there's going to be elements of the public that are going to say, wow, this man has got something, and I'm going to get this following of old school. I'm sure I have a lot of religious groups following this, thinking, this is bringing back good faith, giving us reason to enforce this.
Mhm.
And then there'll be just the detractors on the other side. And they'll, like the woke people, they'll be out to try and shoot me dead.
But again, if they know where they're coming from or where you're coming from,
Well,
they
yeah,
should
but
respect it.
remember, we're in an era where people are supposed to, everyone's beautiful,
Mhm.
everyone's good as they are. You don't need to change. And this is a mantra that I threaten. Because I'm saying you should try and make yourself better. And I you know, there's a real problem. You know, I often say your health, your face is a CV of your health. What is attractiveness?
Right.
Well, it's your face is attractive, isn't it? You know, your face is, you know, if your face grows well, it's healthier.
Right.
Are we not just attracted to people who are healthy?
Sure.
Is not attractiveness health?
Right. Good point.
You know, I kind of I wish sometimes I wish that this wasn't all about facial attractiveness, because it's so emotive. Clearly, I would have never got this following I've got if it wasn't about facial attractiveness.
Right.
Because that's what drives people.
Right.
So, you know, whole thing. That's it. Can I call you that? Okay, so, you know, as I said, the CV is your face is a CV of your health, you know, and it is so important.
Right.
And people are forgetting this. You know, when I went to dental school and I qualified in '93, sleep apnea wasn't in the syllabus. I talked to someone recently who estimates it's killing 20% of the adult population 10 years early.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, I'm you know, fascinated when I try and talk to sleep doctors. Sometimes I think we're speaking a different language. And when I try and talk to them about all of this, I get, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, we've always had sleep apnea, we just didn't evaluate it better.
Right. Right. Being diagnosed.
I don't know. I don't believe that.
Right. Well, it makes sense.
You know,
to
I
me.
think
The way you're describing it. I mean, it makes sense to me, and that's
just,
the way that that's the end game we talk
we've
about.
had this vast change in the structure of this our faces. Vast. I mean, absolutely off the wall huge change. And if you're not considering that change as the major cause, I think you're missing something there.
Right. Completely. Yep. Well, Dr. Mew, we are beyond thankful for this information. It's going to be like for a lot of our families, I think. But to some, I'd like to link, if you don't mind, your orthotropic channel, like when we put our
do
together.
so. Yeah.
And then if there's anything that you think is pivotal or that you want me to link with it, I would love to include that. And then
I wouldn't know where to start sometimes. I mean,
I'm sure you have so much. And then I'm gonna, you know, of course, your suggestions with the chewing, the mealtime exercise, and sleeping. We're on it.
Yeah, literally. So I'm going to run. What I want to do, Stacey, is, you know, I'm going to do the mewing app. Okay.
I can't wait.
And I probably sell a few copies. You know, if you know, if I am stopped in the street, I'll probably sell a few copies. Sure. So what I want to do is I want to give away all my knowledge for children.
That's so exciting. Yes.
You know, because I'd give a lot away if I could, and I'd probably be willing time. And I think, to be honest, actually, I'll probably give away a huge amount of my knowledge teaching. I'm just going to put videos online on how to do it, because someone's got to start breaking this mold. You know, I go to so many courses and conferences, and it's like, oh, well, it's going to be, you know, £1,000 for this and £1,000 for this. And then we get in, and here's this little bit of information. Don't let anyone see it. You've got it here from me, and it's branded, and my logo's on the bottom.
Right.
Well, I thought we were supposed to give everything away. That's how, you know, you make headway.
Right.
And also, you know, I go to lectures, and literally when I core down the information, it could have been summed up in about 20 minutes. If a whole day course could have been done in 20 minutes.
Right. Oh, totally.
Well, I aim to give a conference. If I'm going to give some courses, and by the way, we're just jacking up some courses in Florida for, I think, the 26th. So if it happens August, yeah, I think the 26th and 27th or 28th, somewhere around that of August,
And
we're
that's
going to be in Florida. And that's going to be me and Dad, and it will be the last time Dad and me ever give a lecture together, probably ever.
And that's
That
in
sounds
Florida.
sad, doesn't it?
It
But
is.
certainly in the States. I'm not going to let him. He wants to go to the States one more time. And we're going to organize that. The family are not going to let him ever go again, because hopefully he'll come back alive from this one. I hope he'll survive till he goes. You know.
Terri, I feel like we need to be in Florida in August. That seems kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, literally, you know, you come. I tell you, if I give a day's lecture, you will struggle to compress that to less than a day.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, I could give a month's lecture. To get it into one day is going to be hard work. We're going to do a 2-day conference. And we're also, for anyone else listening, we're thinking on the Saturday night of having a lecture to general public.
Be awesome. Yeah.
Because, you know, I think we should be broaching this. Remember, if what I'm saying is right, it's the general public that are going to be curing themselves with assistance from us. And that's the way it's got to be.
Yes.
You have got to make yourself better.
Yes.
And that's the revolution of viewing, is people making themselves better.
Yes.
And, you know, I totally am observant of the fact that there's members of the public have made me famous. And they've gifted me this opportunity, and I'm not going to let people down.
I think that's amazing.
I'm fully aware of this. And I'm an old school, I'm 3rd generation dentist. I was in this for the right reasons in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's
and I aim to make the world a better place. And well, or die trying.
That's very exciting. Well, we hope that we help our small piece of the pie.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mew. We look forward to hearing about it. And then are you going to post some of this stuff on your Orthotropic site about your conference in Florida and that kind of stuff? Or where do we find that info?
I don't know. I'm not really good at that sort of stuff. I don't know. I'll make a video or something.
I'll just Google it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll think of something. You know, we'll try and get some information out at some point.
That's amazing. Well, I so appreciate your time, and it was an honor to meet you. So thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.